Chapter 5. Lisbon sat on the banks of the Tagus, gleaming in the sun, with its commerce from the international trade market. Both cargo and warships sat in the port waiting to voyage out to the Atlantic to further the understanding of cultures around the world. Having come from Vigo in the north, Joachim's legs and charms were exhausted, and he sought a room for the day to rest before inquiring around various docks about being enlisted into a crew as a navigator. He walked down to the Tagus and took in the calm blue waters. He walked to the bridge and looked out over the river. A red-headed man with gray eyes stood on the bridge with him, looking out with the same awe at the beauty of the river. The man remained motionless as his eyes followed the flow of water to the mountainous horizon. Joachim walked to his side and spoke, surprised that the man spoke French in return. The redhead was named George and was a loader for a ship set to return from Africa within 2 days. They spoke of some politics. They spoke of some religion. Joachim was pleased to find George could converse about some modern scientific philosophies. He was stunned when George began talking about art. He said that a painter friend of his had sat on this bridge to try to capture the essence of the Tagus. It truly was a beautiful city, if one could get past the self-glorifying architecture from earlier in the century. Joachim referred to the river as being the lover of the city. George thought about this and agreed. A poet walking by overheard this conversation. Joachim inquired about a possible job as a navigator on the incoming ship. George told him that it was a stroke of luck that they had met. The ship was to set sail for Brazil on its next voyage, and although the captain trusted his own navigation going to and from Africa, this trip would be new to him. He could use a navigator, that is, if Joachim knew the stars. They went back into the city and got Joachim a room at a hostel, where he showed George his elaborate charts. Impressed by this man's work and dedication, George went out and bought a bottle of wine and some bread for them to dine on. When he returned, he had to wake Joachim up. They ate and discussed similarities between myths of old and modern religious beliefs. They drank and discussed the moral travesty that was embodied in slavery. George said that he was a loader for a slave trader he worked for because he had traveled down to Africa once. The sight of men being pulled away from their families and chained like animals was horrifying. The instant one man tried to escape, he was chased down and beat. When that man fought back, he was killed by a sword through the stomach. The murder stuck in George's mind. When he had returned to Lisbon, he asked that he could stay as a dockhand. They drank more, and Joachim revealed that on his journey to Lisbon he had come across a man on the side of the road that had been stabbed through the stomach. He wrapped the man in his coat and carried him to the nearest town. The man was the English cousin of the Austrian queen. He had been in France trying to establish diplomatic ties and hoping of creating a triarchy between the three kingdoms. He had been taken out to a night of music and then was slain by the duke of the town Joachim had brought him back to. Joachim accepted a small sum of money and split before the duke recognized him. As he walked away from the town, he heard the screams of a dying man, and then quiet. They both agreed that man's cruelty has no boundaries other than what he sets upon himself. George speculated that man is neither basically good or basically evil. He is just overwhelmed by what was given to him. How could a creature that believes in good and evil understand its place in a world of crapshoots? They drank. "Are you a holy man?" George asked him. "I am no holier a man than God made me. Do you take offense if one questions the church?" "Not at all." Joachim filled their glasses again. "Good. People are beginning to realize that our roots trace back to animals. The famous idea that humans were put on Earth as superior beings will be recognized as a falsification before the century is out. Even if that happens, the Church will object to such a claim. Perhaps it will come to be seen that we started out as equal or less than other animals in a world that has no rights or wrongs, just a strong survival will. People understand that their very basic emotions, the burning hate, the untamed rage, are just left over from our animalistic instincts. If that is all we are, intelligent animals, then what is to become of us? The mind will develop to the point of total self-realization. Our human nature will overcome our animal nature. At that point, we will take a step forward into a world you and I cannot even comprehend. Imagine worldwide communication or a common understanding between all people. You sound like a hopeless dreamer. Perhaps I catch glimpses of the future, George said. I'd prefer glimpses of the present. I'd like to see humanity come around and begin this change now. The Earth's agenda moves at a much slower pace than our own. We are but specks of dust that live off of the Earth, draining her energy as we go. That appears very pessimistic. Maybe it is reality. What is reality, aside from what you believe it is?